What's up, dude? In this video, I'm going to recap the last week of NBA basketball starting from November 11th. The game I watched that night was Thunder vs Clippers. Chet Holmgren unfortunately fractured his pelvis and is out for the next couple months, and then to make things worse, all OKC's other big men were out too. The good thing about this was it meant OKC was going to show men all around the world that it doesn't matter how big you are as long as you know how to use what you got. They made this statement by starting the 6'5" Jalen Williams at center. This brought me back to when I was a wee lad, about 4 years ago, amazed by the mighty PJ Tucker starting at center for the Rockets. Sadly, PJ couldn't handle AD and LeBron, but you can't say little dude playing center wasn't electric. That brave meatball was getting banged down low by huge dudes with like 7 inches on him. Pause. In another universe, he willed the Rockets to a championship and won Finals MVP, but sadly it wasn't this one. Back to reality, and here we are with OKC rolling out their own PJ Tucker type lineup. The Thunder's tallest starter was Shea at 6'6". Meanwhile, the Clippers had Zubac, a 7-foot ogre averaging 16 points and 13 rebounds. Despite the Thunder having nobody near that size, they were able to fend him off with double and triple teams, treating him like he was prime Shaq. Big Zoo still dropped a hyper-efficient 22 points to go along with 14 rebounds and 3 blocks, but that wasn't enough to will LA to the win. That's because OKC hustled like it was Game 7 of the finals. They were constantly swarming Zubac, poking the ball loose, forcing turnovers, and making every possession a grind. Because of their high-energy D as well as SGA's 45-point eruption, the Clippers just couldn't get their head above water, losing 128 to 134. OKC is now 9-2, while the Clippers dropped to 6-5. Quick shout out to James Harden for hitting 2 cool back-to-back step-back threes, and also Norman Powell. That dude balled out, dropping 31 points, shooting 10 for 15 from the field. Norman's averaged 26 points per game this season. If you said to me back in 2015 that Norman Powell would go on average over 25 in the future, I would have thought you were on drugs or slow. Anywho, there were 4 other games that night, starting with the Cavs and Bulls. Donovan Mitchell went off for a season-high 36 points, allowing Cleveland to stay undefeated with a 119-113 win, moving to 12-0 on the year. Despite strong showings from Levine, White, and Vooch, the Bulls' 20 turnovers kept them from putting the Cavs' momentum to a halt. Over in Houston, Alperen Şengün went beast mode, dropping 27 points and 17 boards to power the Rockets past the Wizards. Kuzma was back in action, but with Washington getting crushed on the glass, it was all Houston as they notched their 4th win in 5 games. Meanwhile, New Orleans, Cam Thomas took over late, scoring 10 of his 17 in the 4th, including a clutch 3 to push Brooklyn past the Pelicans. Ingram's hot first half wasn't enough to break the Pelicans' 5-game slump as they faded in crunch time. Finally, in San Antonio, Wembanyama started to get back into his groove, dropping 34 points and 14 rebounds to lead the Spurs over the Kings by 20. San Antonio's season-high 22 threes buried Sacramento, who struggled defensively all night. That concludes November 11th. Before I get into the 12th, make sure to join my Discord. It's where we talk about hoops and get freaky. Link will be in the description as well as pinned in the comments. Moving on to the 12th, the game I watched was Hawks vs Celtics. Pretty exciting night because it marked the first round of the NBA Cup. What wasn't so exciting was the Hawks injury report. Trey was out along with DeAndre Hunter, Bogey, Vic, Kobe Buffkin, David Roddy, and Cody Zeller. At the start of every season, it feels like without failure, half the Hawks roster is in the infirmary. Meanwhile, the Celtics were only missing Kristaps, which was no big deal for a team at full strength otherwise. Despite all this, with Keaton Wallace running the show, the Hawks somehow managed to keep Boston's lead at just 11 by halftime. I was expecting the Hawks to be down by 30 or 40 at this point. With the lead not being insurmountable, the Hawks held on to hope and it paid off. In the 3rd quarter, the boys were buzzing and cut the lead to 7 heading into the 4th. ATL had something brewing. The entire squad was locked in and Dyson Daniels looked like a superstar. He went off, scoring like he was Mike, racking up a career-high 28 points to go along with 7 steals. Over the course of his last 4 games, the Dyson vacuum has racked up 23 steals. That's nearly 6 a game. And he leads the league in deflections with 76 through 10 games. That's the most ever since deflections started getting tracked. Right now, he's on track to double the NBA record of deflections of 300. While it was sad seeing DeJounte leave, Dyson is leaps and bounds better on D, and I'm probably gonna name my firstborn child after him. In addition to the Aussie stellar play, Jalen Johnson went stupid too, dropping a triple-double with 18 points, 13 rebounds, and 10 assists. The guy was everywhere, making plays, keeping the Celtics D on its toes. With around 8 minutes left, the game was neck and neck, staying like that up until the very last second. But then, to the dismay of Boston fans, Onyeka Okongwu sealed the deal, crashing the boards and tipping in a missed shot with just over 6 seconds left, putting Atlanta up by 1 and silencing the crowd. The Celtics had one last chance, but Jaylen Brown's jumper rimmed out, and the Hawks escaped with a 117-116 win. A-Town now sits at 5-7, while Beantown dropped to 9-3. After the Hawks game, Clay's return to Golden State came on. It was his first time back at Chase Center since he took his talents to Dallas, and Warriors fans made sure he felt the love. They handed out captain's hats as a little nod to his tradition of taking his boat to games. Then there was this big tribute moment with him and Steph embracing before tip-off. It was a pretty cool, emotional moment, but once the game started, the nostalgia was out the window and they wanted to kill each other. Klay came out firing, putting up 22 points and knocking down a dagger 3 late in the fourth that briefly gave Dallas the lead. The crowd didn't know whether to cheer or boo as Klay lit it up. Meanwhile, Steph was also cooking. In the final minutes, it was clear he wanted to ruin his old friend's return. He completely took over the game, scoring Golden State's last 12 points and finishing with 37 on the night. It was a statement reminding everyone in Chase Center that no matter how much love they have for Klay, this was still Steph's house. The Wonder Boy did his best to keep the Mavericks in it, adding 31 points with 8 boards and 6 assists, but Dallas couldn't overcome 18 turnovers, which the Warriors happily turned into 21 points. With Golden State's bench stepping up, Come Bucket and Buddy Hield combined for 30, Steph had just enough firepower around him to close it out. In the end, the Warriors defended their turf and handed Klay a bittersweet welcome back moment as Golden State moved to 9-2 while Dallas took the loss, falling to 5-6. Along with those 2 games, there were 6 others. First up, the Pistons edged out the Heat 123-121 in a wild overtime finish, with Malik Beasley hitting clutch free throws after Miami was penalized for an illegal timeout. Tyler Hero dropped 40 for the Heat, including 18 in the fourth quarter, but it wasn't enough. Then in Orlando, Franz Wagner's 32 points led the Magic to a 114-89 win over the Hornets, despite LaMelo scoring 35. Staying in the East, the Knicks spoiled Joel Embiid's season debut for the 76ers, beating Philly 111-99 behind OG Anunoby's 24 points in a balanced Knicks offense. I saw a pretty interesting stat that said Cat is allowing opponents to shoot like 94% in the restricted area, which is just impressively bad. He's never been known as a great defender, but he might be worse than Trae Young now. Over in Milwaukee, Giannis's 23 points powered the Bucks past the Raptors 99-85, with Grady Dick's career-high 32 keeping Toronto fans from ending it all. Moving on to Phoenix, their high-octane offense was on full display, winning 120-112 over the Jazz, led by Devin Booker's 31 points and Bradley Beal's 24. Finally, Portland recovered from that one abysmal game they had a few days ago, shooting a scorching hot 56% from 3 to defeat the Timberwolves 122-108. Alright, that wraps up November 12th, let's move on to November 13th. There were 11 games. The first one I want to talk about is Knicks vs Bulls. This should have been an easy win for the struggling Knickerbockers, but their slow start continued. By the third quarter, the Bulls had jumped out to a huge lead, up by 22, but the Knicks fought back hard with Cat going off for 46 and Brunson putting them ahead 123-121 with just 4 seconds left. Then in a wild finish, White got fouled on a 3-pointer by Josh Hart and knocked down all 3 free throws to put Chicago back on top. Brunson had one last shot to win it, but it just missed at the buzzer and the Bulls escaped with the 124-123 win. The next game I want to talk about is the Spurs vs Wizards. This game saw Wemby take center stage with a career-high 50 points, drilling 8 of 16 from deep as the Spurs secured a 9-point win over Washington. Wemby's scoring display made him the 4th youngest player to hit 50 points, joining elite company with LeBron, Booker, and Brandon Jennings. On the other side, Jordan Poole dropped a strong 42 for the Wizards, but it wasn't enough to break their 6-game skid. Wemby's 50 was too much, ruining their pool party. Devin Vassell had 17 in his 3rd game back, and the Spurs nailed a season-high 22 threes, leaving Washington without any answers. Over in Milwaukee, the Bucks fought hard for a 127-120 overtime win over the Pistons, with Giannis absolutely going off for a season-high 59 points, plus 14 rebounds and 7 assists. The Bucks were down by 18 in the second half, but Giannis and Brook Lopez, who dropped 29, powered them back. Things got chippy too. Detroit's Isaiah Stewart got tossed in the 3rd after pulling Giannis down by his jersey. Detroit had a chance to seal it at the end, but Ron Holland missed 2 free throws with 1 second left, pushing it to overtime where the Bucks won the game. Speaking of winning games, let's move over to Cleveland, where the Cavs went toe-to-toe with Philly. In this game, Donovan Mitchell was clutch, scoring 11 of his 23 points in the final 3 minutes. Along with that, Darius Garland added 25 points and Evan Mobley chipped in 14. For Philly, missing both Paul George and Joel Embiid, Jared McCain stepped up big with a career-high 34 points, becoming probably the only dude with painted nails to score 30, while Kelly Oubre Jr. and Caleb Martin also added solid contributions. But Cleveland's late push, powered by Mitchell's 3 triples, sealed the win, putting them in elite company with only 5 other teams ever starting 13-0. The last game I'll talk about for this day is the Lakers vs Grizzlies. In this matchup, the never-aging LeBron put on a show, notching his 3rd straight triple-double with 35 points, 14 assists, and 12 rebounds to lead LA to a 128-123 comeback win. The Lakers were down by 5 going into the 4th, but Anthony Davis continued his MVP campaign, coming in clutch, scoring 11 of his 21 points in the final quarter, including a go-ahead 3 that put them up for good. Rookie Dalton Knecht and Rui Hachimura both added 19 points, with Knecht hitting all 5 of his threes. For Memphis, Jaren Jackson Jr. led with 29 points, but it wasn't enough to keep up with the Lakers' home court energy, which kept them undefeated at 6-0 in LA. The other 6 games went as follows. The Magic scraped by the Pacers 94-90. Franz Wagner was in his bag, scoring 29 points. Boston, fresh off a rough loss against the Hawks, lit up the Nets 139-114. Tatum went stupid, dropping 36, and Pritchard came off the bench like a bat out of hell. OKC met up with New Orleans, boasting their tiny PJ Tucker-esque lineup. Yet again it worked, forcing 24 turnovers and a dominant 106-88 dub. In Houston, Jalen Green went for 21 as the Rockets outlasted the Clippers' late push, taking it 111-103. Meanwhile, Portland handled Minnesota 106-98, thanks to Sharp's 33 points, while the Wolves were ice cold from 3. And finally, Sacramento smoked the Suns 127-101, with De'Aaron Fox putting on a clinic. The last game I'll cover in this video is the only one that was played on November 14th, Dallas vs. Utah. Despite the fact that the Jazz are bad at basketball and hadn't won a home game all season, they fucked up the Mavericks. Atlanta Hawks legend John Collins led them to their first home win of the season in a thrilling 115-113 victory. JC dropped 28 points and grabbed 9 rebounds, including the wide-open game-winning dunk with 6.4 seconds left. When Clarkson saw him wide open down there, he couldn't believe his eyes. Shout out John Collins. I'm glad he's playing well. When he was on the Hawks, I thought he was going to be kinda sorta what Jalen Johnson is, so I got his jersey for Christmas one year. But after averaging 20 and 10, out of nowhere the dude became ass, gradually getting worse year after year. This season though, he's picked it up, playing very well, averaging a respectable 18 and 8. Mark my words, that jersey's gonna be worth something one day. Maybe not a lot, but something. Anywho, Luka was sensational for Dallas, scoring 37 to go along with 7 rebounds and 9 assists, but his one-man show wasn't enough. Utah's scrappy defense and a crucial 9-0 third quarter run turned the tide, with rookie Kyle Filipowski quietly continuing his hot streak, averaging 16 points on 68% shooting over his last 2 games. Quentin Grimes stepped up in Kyrie's absence with 15 points and Klay added 17, including a clutch 3 to tie it late. But ultimately, Utah's energy and transition game gave them the edge, sending Dallas to 5-7, while the Jazz finally didn't disappoint their fans who paid money to see them play. Alright, I'll pick back up with November 15th games in the next one. Thanks for watching this one. Click here to watch my last recap. Bye, dude.